Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in about that the mother had went on a walk, came home, now they can't find her through the jail anymore.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. We are covering the Delphi case. I know it's been a few weeks. A lot has happened, but we are still waiting on the Supreme Court to pretty much tell everybody if he's going to remove Judge Gull, or he or she, the Supreme Court, is going to remove Judge Gull or not. So the problem is Richard Allen's defense team pretty much wants her removed. They feel that the way that she handled this leak situation wasn't the right way, and they feel that she's biased. And not only do they want her removed, but they're hoping that they can still represent Richard Allen pro bono. So we're still waiting on that big update from the Supreme Court. But yesterday we got these transcripts that pretty much have the whole conversation that they had in chambers. And we're going to just go through those transcripts. I have visuals. They reference things that have taken place. So I've clipped in everything that I kind of could find in showing you guys what this conversation was being talked about. So there'll be times where they mention court TV. There'll be times when they mention a press release that they put out last year. All that I've kind of laid out the visuals, and even for their faces, I kind of tried to put a face to their name so that we're not just pulling up the transcript itself and just reading through. So hopefully you pull something different out of it if you've already listened to it or read it already. For me, I listened to it a few times already. And as I'm editing it, it's still kind of processing and painting a bigger picture. And for the most part, it seems that Rosie specifically was just very upset and felt like he didn't have this association to this Mitchell guy who leaked the photos from the defense. And he was hoping that, maybe he could still stay on, and you'll hear his frustrations, and kind of Baldwin chimes in and says that he believes that this should have been handled differently, more of a due process stance, and hopes that, they would have been given the chance to kind of argue their point. So let me just get right into the transcripts. And the other update is Judge Gull apparently was in the hospital. Let me just share the screen. Earlier this month. It's just making the news today, though. So interesting timing. Again, I'm not saying she wasn't sick or anything. I just feel like with us waiting on the Supreme Court to kind of weigh in if they're going to remove her or not, it's just, it's all interesting, And let me just read a little bit of what they say. The judge in the Delphi murders case is recovering at home after an urgent medical condition. So, of course, she's not obligated to tell the public what that was. And, they're not specific, but apparently she's working from home. According to a statement from Allen Superior Court, Judge Francis Gull was feeling under the weather for several days before talking with her physician on November 2nd. Her doctor decided she needed treatment for an urgent medical condition, and she was hospitalized for several days. Since then, she has been working from home. Her fellow judges in the criminal division have been handling Gull's court calendar. She expects to return to office soon. And we'll just play the little clip that kind of gives us an update somewhat as well in other things that were going on with document filings today. And you'll hear some of this conversation in the transcripts where Rosie and Baldwin are kind of talking with the judge about the way that the documents and her docket has been laid out, and their dissatisfaction with how kind of documents have been, released to the public, or you'll hear the whole thing. And hello, Melmac, Aries, Sweet Dude, Shibby, Delana, Scottish Queen. Thank you everyone for being here. Cray cray. If you guys could just hit the thumbs up, that's all I ask. And everything else, of course, is appreciated as well. If you subscribe, that's awesome too. So let's just hear what this little update, this is from today, and then we'll get into the transcripts and all that.
Information about the Delphi murders case, and today is no exception.
That's right. So let's get you updated here. Attorneys for defendant Richard Allen are again pushing back against the judge for how she's handled some important documents. So our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel joins us again today to explain why the judge in this murder case really continues to be the center of attention here.
Yeah, Richard Allen and his attorneys are not happy with the judge at all, going all the way to the Indiana Supreme Court to ask that the judge be removed from the case. We're still waiting to hear about that. But in the meantime, we can tell you that they also claim the judge has been withholding important case documents from the public, and they want the high court to stop that. Last week, Judge Fran Gall responded, telling the Supreme Court she has not improperly withheld Delphi court documents from public view, and that she's already ordered the records to be posted where the public can easily find them. So right now, she said that there is no need for the high court to get involved because the issues are already resolved. But this morning, Allen's attorneys filed their own response, telling the court the judge is wrong. They say most of the records in question still do not appear online, and that the judge has repeatedly misunderstood and misapplied rules about how to handle court records. They also claim the judge ordered the Carroll County clerk to violate those rules and then tried to blame the clerk for the problems. Allen's attorneys say the violations by the judge are shocking, and they're asking the Supreme Court to intervene and to order correction. So that's where we stand right now.
So do we know when the court is going to rule on that?
Well, it could be any day now. It could be a few weeks. We really don't know that. The bigger issue, though, right now before the Supreme Court is whether to keep Judge Gall on the case at all or to replace her. Also, whether to reinstate Allen's original defense team, which the judge disqualified a few weeks ago. So all this is just a big distraction as Richard Allen tries to defend himself against murder charges, and as the families of Libby German and Abby Williams look for justice following the teenagers' murders.
And again, this seems like day after day we have more drama, and this comes right after some other documents in the case were just released.
Yeah, those were released yesterday. Right now, Rich Nye is taking a closer look at those documents. They detail a closed-door conversation in private between the judge and Allen's former legal team. Rich has got new perspective on what those documents show, and that's going to be coming up at 5 o'clock.
Sorry. Thank you, Aries. Appreciate that. So no, I was just saying, so pretty much all we are waiting on is the Supreme Court to say yes or no about removing Judge Gull. A lot of experts and legal experts are saying that they don't think that the Supreme Court is going to remove her, but there is a lot of hopeful people who are feeling like she's already walked into this case biased. And when you listen to this conversation in the transcripts, there's a point where she calls McClelland Nick, like by his first name, just very personal. And to me, it's like, you could argue that even subliminally, it seems as though she's siding with the prosecution and isn't this unbiased judge like she's supposed to be for this case. Again, that's just my opinion. I feel like there is some undertone of she had made up her mind before Rosie and Baldwin even could go in there and explain themselves. So we'll get into that right now. put some clips together as well. So I hope you guys like what I've edited together. And hello, Roxanne, and everybody else who has joined, Johnny. And thank you, everybody, for being here.
Say anything about why investigators are focused on your client?
You guys will read the probable cause affidavit, and you may wonder why they are focused on our client.
Attorney Nicholas McClelland. Judge, I wanted to do some introductions. I finally got approved from our counsel to hire a paid attorney to help me, so the court. Okay. Mr. McClelland, small-time local government. So this is Jim Luttrell. He is a retired prosecutor from Grant County. He's decided or agreed to come on board. The court. Okay, have a seat. Mr. McClelland, he signed the oath to my office. The court. Okay, Mr. McClelland. And all that, I'm going to handle a written appearance. Attorney James Luttrell. Nice to meet you, Judge. The court. Nice to meet you, Jim.
I agree, Texas Ranger, and I'm going to try not to pause too much, and I'll just pull your guys' comments up on screen because I want to get through this kind of in a streamlined format. But I do agree with this comment. I can't help but think there's something going on in Delphi. Even though I think Richard Allen is guilty, they shouldn't have him in prison in solitary till he's convicted. And I'm still very concerned about him being tased a couple times. And according to the guards who did it, they said that he wasn't cooperating with them. Now, I want more details about that. And I also would like to know, I'm pretty sure it was the same correctional officers who had the In Odin We Trust patches on their uniform. If I'm wrong there, you guys correct me, but it's just everything is just very, very unsettling with this case. Even how long it took them to kind of re-find the tip for Richard Allen. Now, after these transcripts, I do kind of want to go into theories of why exactly this leak took place. Because what we're going to hear, even from McClelland in these transcripts, is these leaks have been taking place from the very beginning. And, he says it in these transcripts. Rosie says that, they have a whole deposition where someone in law enforcement is pretty much saying like, yes, there were searchers who were taking pictures of the girls, and everything has just kind of been leaking since 2017. And I've also pulled up receipts to show you that too on the screen when we get to that part. And, it's just, is Richard Allen alone in this? That's where I have questions. He very well may be guilty, and they probably have stuff on him that we don't know about that isn't in the PCA. But is it, just him by himself? I have a very hard time believing that personally.
Mr. McClelland, next week, the court. Okay. Mr. McClelland, or maybe tomorrow if I have time, Judge, if I can get it done. The court. Okay, Mr. McClelland, but we will be entered in and we're trying to get him up to speed. The court. Okay, well, good. Attorney Bradley Rosie. Well, I'm the one that kind of asked to huddle up. So if you want me to lead or if you want to say some things, I'm okay with whatever approach you want to take here. The court. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rosie. Well, I think the court. I've got Jody's got our portable FTR going just so that Rosie. Okay, that's fine. The court. Got a record. Rosie, obviously I'm happy to hear that the court's going to make some decisions on the pending pleadings today. The judge. I assumed Andy feels the same way, Rosie says. It's time to get some closure, if you will, with regard to those items so that we can move forward. It's probably obvious that the tension from our side is coming, from the words disqualification that were murmured in the phone conference that we had a couple weeks ago. I'm assuming you understand how that kind of raises the intensity level of the circumstances. And I guess I have a concern today. It's that, we're going to go out the kind of in public, so to speak, in the courtroom on the record and have a discussion about the ongoing investigation. And that's what I kind of gathered from the email, you know. I think you invited Nick to talk about that if he wanted to. The judge, Rosie, you know, it makes me a little uncomfortable because I don't know. First of all, there are no pleadings that are pending, whether they're motions to disqualify or contempt citations or whatever they might be, that really frame any of the issues. And I have no problem. I mean, I don't have any problem talking about this stuff privately on record and, you know, in an ex parte type confidential hearing. I just think it's difficult to expect that there will be any kind of structure to the idea of, you know, hey, there's an ongoing investigation and just tell us what's going on. And I don't know that it has any relevance to what we're really trying to accomplish today. And I also don't know why Nick would want to talk about an ongoing investigation in public, knowing that in itself could be a little damaging to their circumstances. And so we're lawyers. We're used to having issues framed. We're used to having an opportunity to prepare. And I don't have anything to hide. And I know he doesn't have anything to hide. You've maybe gathered that we've cooperated. We ran into the state police posts, our respective posts, if you will, and I had somebody advise me of my rights, and I waived those, and I gave a formal statement, and he did the same. And I'm not sure that we're going to benefit or that this will be productive to just open floor this. That's my biggest concern today. The judge. Attorney Andrew Baldwin. I'm more of a like due process side. I'm not really sure what will happen, but I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and I would like the opportunity to know what's going to happen and prepare for the claiming or whatever before it happens. And I don't feel like I don't want to say ambushed, but it's hard to know for me what to do when I don't know what's happening. There's not a pleading we can respond to, things like that. So, you know, you had indicated that, you know, when Nick said, I don't know if he said that word disqualification, but the judge, oh, he did, Mr. Baldwin. Was it that word? The judge, Mr. Baldwin. Okay, I didn't know if he just said it in a more generic way. The court, Mr. Baldwin. And your response was, you know, I'm leaning in that direction or something along those lines? The court, Mr. Baldwin. And so that's, you know, a cause of concern. I mean, we're still wanting to try this case in January, and I'm willing to, you know, we have made changes at my office that will prevent from this ever happening again, you know, and we can take directions from the court. We can, you know, we're locking down every single thing on Delphi. It's in a dedicated room. We put locks on our conference room or the war room where this guy went. My friend went in and did this without my knowledge, and that in no document, whether it's benign or something super, you know, like a crime scene photo, is ever going to be left alone for a single solitary second ever again.
Now, my question, since we're on this part in this transcript, why did Mitchell do this? You know, Baldwin, and again, we'll get into the theories once this is over, but just keep kind of that question in your mind, because Baldwin himself calls Mitchell a friend, and, you know, he worked with him. So what was in it for Mitchell to leak this, to risk his reputation, to have to write up a written affidavit, which we know he didn't put the exact date from which he leaked these or took these photos and leaked them. So his signed affidavit, Mitchell's, you know, pretty much takes blame for it, taking photos that were laid out on a table, but we don't know what date that happened. And when we're trying to kind of pinpoint these leaks and, you know, kind of align a timeline of all of that, it's just very interesting that we can't even put that timeline in from where Mitchell took this. What was in it for Mitchell to destroy even a friendship with Baldwin?
So, you know, I'm hoping that can be something that the court, you know, can say, all right, that's fine, and let's get on with the trial. But I'll shut up now. The judge. Anything, Nick? Mr. McClelland. Judge, I guess my plan today was to give the court a summary of the investigation. I've got witnesses here and exhibits to present that go towards the investigation. I'm more than happy to hand those over to the defense. I know it may harm the investigation, but I think it would be important that the court hear these things. I guess the heart of it, investigation, I think, think it's important. I think the importance of you hearing it is outweighed by that. And so I have those things. I'm concerned that the leak is not just one-time leak. The evidence that we have showed is it is an ongoing leak. However, it's being done and it's just, what's next? I have an issue. What's next? I mean, I've spent the past 17 days investigating this night and day when I should have been focused on preparing for trial. And when I say night and day, I mean phone calls at 2 a.m., 3:30 a.m., night and day. And so that's where I'm at, Judge. Again, I'm an officer of the court. I'm reporting to the court what I know, and that's kind of where I see my role. The judge. Okay, Mr. Rosie. You know, this is starting to scream due process to me. I haven't seen any of these exhibits, and I don't know really, frankly, I don't know anything about any of this. I am not distancing myself from Mr. Baldwin. I'm just saying I have no connection with any of these people, okay? And the idea that somehow the prosecutor is going to get to roll out a bunch of statements and exhibits, testimony without us having any forewarning or any idea, any way of scrutinizing that seems a little outside the boundaries of due process to me. Plus,
See, that's a good theory. If we're going to list off theories, the Rockaways says this is the judge, the prosecution, and the police all working together, pre-planned to knock Rosie and Baldwin off the case with PR by the murder sheets. Now, I could see that. I could see how you could come to that theory with that, with everything that we've kind of seen take place so far, and murder sheet is just the prosecution's mouthpiece to get around the gag order. I've seen a lot of people feel that way as well. I'm feeling though that these leaks and all that have been taking place even before Rosie and Baldwin ever even joined the case. So for them to for this leak, this final leak to be orchestrated, I definitely could see how that could be a viable theory that, okay, now this leak with Mitchell is going to set things over the edge and let's just get them off the case because they've caused so much chaos with the press release from December 2022, which was after the gag order was put on. And now this Odin theory, it's just caused so much doubt, which is what the defense is supposed to do. But perhaps the prosecution was feeling like they couldn't come back and, draw people back to their side. And, a lot of people were like all over this Odin theory and like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And, so is it that? Did they just, make this last final leak, this huge orchestration and blow up like, okay, let's just get them off the case and we'll put different lawyers on there. But the thing is, what if the next lawyers use those same theories, like with Odinism and all that, So I'm like, is that what this is? Or is it something else? And I'm feeling like it's hard to really say, but I think that that's a good theory, And I'm also thinking maybe it was all not even so much that they wanted Rosie and Baldwin out. That just happened to work in their favor for it to go down this way. I'm thinking like, what if it's just the prosecution feeling like their case against Richard Allen at this moment was weak because again, they were supposed to go to trial. It was weak and they didn't have everything that they needed, or they felt like, okay, we're going to lose. And so they make this final leak a big deal. And they're like, oh, well, they got to go. And it just kind of worked in their favor that not only do they get more time to kind of prepare for trial and to kind of point the finger at Richard Allen, but they've also got Rosie and Baldwin off of everything. So it's like two birds with one stone. They get more time to kind of dot their I's and cross their T's. And maybe they know that their case is weak with everything that's happening with other people named in that memorandum and all that, just something I'm thinking too. I don't know how you guys feel about that. McClellan was starting to feel overmatched by the opposing attorneys. The prosecutor has never tried a murder case before as lead attorney. Yeah, you can tell that he's I was curious his experience. He's a younger guy, again, not to be like ageism or anything, but I was wondering, has he even handled a case like this. You know, he should be calling in extra help. When's the last time any of us has seen Richard Allen alive? Hi, Willie. It's good to see you. So he was in court during this day when this transcript is taking place. Actually, I don't even think he made it in the courtroom, but he was there, like ready to go in there, and then they kind of escorted him back to the jail. But I think that clip that we kind of played, oh, did we play it? I don't know. It might be in here somewhere, but we have a clip of him walking down the stairs, which supposedly is the most recent image of Richard Allen. And he was looking like he was doing better, like after the memorandum. But now I'm wondering if, oh, yay, Allie sent her chat here. Thank you so much, Alex. I don't know if you're in here. I'm wondering if, hi, MK, and everyone else joining, maybe Richard Allen's appearance and all that is going to go back on the decline since he lost his lawyers that he wanted. So, Willie, I guess it's been, to kind of give you a straight answer, it's been what, since October 19th, I think, that we've kind of seen him on camera. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Or was he there for October 31st hearing when they decided to hand over the discovery to the new lawyers and all that? Let me know, guys.
Again, I get back to what is the relevance to what is going on in this case. Why are we going to use an open courtroom to air an ancillary matter? It's not really connected in any way at this point to the proceedings that are ongoing, whether it's the Franks issue or anything of that nature. And I will tell you this, I am prepared to show the court this. I would rather do it in private. This problem has been a problem from the very beginning. I have 10 pages of a deposition transcript in this file from my deposition, our deposition, that I took a Trooper Holman in this case in, and in that deposition, he talks openly about how there were crime scene links from the very beginning, unequivocal crime scene leaks, and that as soon as this crime occurred, they were investigating information that had been released because there were lay people that were part of the search party, and the implication is, I've got the transcript, is that those people that found the girls started to essentially disseminate or distribute information, and law enforcement essentially try to catch up with them, but it was really too late. As you might expect, once it gets in the hands of the public, it's too late. So he told us that, almost volunteered that information to me in the deposition. The second concern I have is that I think I shared with this court, just as an example, a week or two ago, somebody sends me a court TV, bit, and I can assure you I've never watched any of those bits on this case. I don't even know if I've ever really watched court TV, maybe back when Simpson was ongoing, I don't know. And in that bit, Barbara McDonald is talking 2 different occasions. She mentioned how she's getting information from investigators on the ground that were at the crime scene.
I've been hearing about these stick formations and this image on the tree for a very long time, very different characterizations than what's in this memorandum. Sources close to the investigation have provided me with drawings of what they say those images look like.
Now we all draw implications about that, but most importantly, it was corroborated by the fact that she was holding in her hands documents that I know to be directly related to the Purdue report. I mean, I saw the pictures. I know where those came from. And if you know, the point here is, I'm gonna say this maybe a little loosely, but forgive me, I don't care that all this stuff is out there because it's been out there for 5 or 6 years. I don't have time. He doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to sit and try to marshal out all this stuff while this case is ongoing, because there's no end to it. And this point is the court needs to have some context that this is nothing new. I lost sleep over the fact that there's a man who's dead, and I don't even know, and frankly, Andy doesn't know, and it's tragic. I don't know what life circumstances he had or what surrounded this. None of that information has been shared with us, but at the end of the day, what's going on in the cyber world and in the public, as you might expect in this case of this magnitude, that's been publicized for 6 years, was beyond our control before we even got involved.
Thank you, Tom and everyone. You guys have a great Thanksgiving this week also. That's the reason why we're not doing the Friday live stream. We did one last night and we'll be hopefully doing one next Tuesday, but if not Tuesday, definitely Friday. And you're very welcome, Tom N, for everything you claim that I do for the true crime community. I just do my best, and I'm just happy you guys are here to talk cases with me, really, though. I appreciate it.
Mr. Baldwin, there's even a guy in Florida who says the guy in Texas who leaked all this stuff has received from a disgruntled Carroll County employee a whole file filled with stuff and photos included. I haven't seen the photos that were leaked. I don't know what they are, you know. I mean, if this could be set for a formal hearing in the future where we have a chance to do it the right way, then that's one thing. But, you know, to go in there, we don't have any counter way to counteract anything. If I know what it is, I can, oh, okay, I know what that is, or I don't know what that is. And it's, you know, and in the meantime, you know, I don't know. Honestly, this is the worst, lowest point of my career right now because somebody did what they did to me. And that has nothing to do with Richard Allen, the judge. It certainly does not, Mr. Baldwin. Richard Allen needs to have counsel there. So I just don't want to go in there and not be able to fight back with evidence or witnesses that we have to counteract whatever they claim. So, judge, okay. Here's my thoughts in no particular order. I don't know how many folks are out there, and I certainly don't wish to air publicly to the world the concerns that I have about this matter. My intent in having this hearing was to go through some of the pleadings that we have not yet decided. So I was going to start with reminding everybody about the decorum order, reminding everybody why we're here to shut up, etc., etc. There have been reports to my sheriff about disruptive people, and I will remind people if they are disrupted, they will be removed, and my sheriff is fully prepared to execute arrests if necessary, because I know we've seen in other hearings people have been disruptive and hateful. So under the rules, under the canons of judicial conduct, I'm required to advise people within the room that the media is here and they are filming. They're doing pool coverage, so there's only 2 cameras in the courtroom and everybody's going to get coverage from that. And then I want to talk about the pleadings. Defendant filed a verified motion for immediate transfer of custody. The state filed its response. The motion again has a lot of inaccuracies and some speculation, and it has been refuted ably, and I think by the affidavits that have been submitted by the state, and I'm going to deny the motion. The defendant then filed a motion for broadcasting order. The state filed its response. Your motion's overboard. It's got a lot of irrelevant verbiage in it, and I am required to consider individual requests for hearings, so I will. If the media wishes to have an individual request submitted, they know fully well how to do that, and I've provided to counsel all of those requests that I've gotten so far from this hearing. If you want to file them for particular hearings, you're certainly welcome to do that. But the media is all over this, and they know how to do this. Mr. Rosie. Yeah, I was just trying to understand. Are you suggesting that you're going to determine that on a case-by-case basis or on a hearing-by-hearing basis? The judge, hearing by hearing. Mr. Rosie, okay. The judge, yeah. Mr. Rosie, all right, okay. I just want to make sure I understand what the judge. The state filed its motion for leave of court to subpoena the third-party records. I think that was directed again to DOC. I clearly can't grant that. I'm going to grant the defendant's motion to quash. But if you continue to raise his medical and mental health in proceedings and in pleadings, that's fair game then for that to be provided to the state. You also have filed, Mr. McClelland, a motion for future pleadings and filings to be sealed prior to being released to the public. I've not gotten a response from the defense. Mr. Rosie, can I speak on that? The judge, sure. Mr. Rosie, I think it's important to note that, we have this discussion come up before, and we decided, okay, we're done sealing stuff. We're gonna make it public. Before we filed that Frank's brief, I had a long conversation with the court reporter, Karen Allen, over in Delphi, because I wasn't sure about Allen or Roller. I always want to call her Karen, Mr. McClelland, Allen, Mr. Rosie, Karen Allen, because I wasn't sure about the mechanics of how all this stuff was moving from Delphi to your office. And I know you had set up some kind of website or something that people could access. And I was under the understanding in speaking with Miss Allen, I'm not blaming her or anything, but when we filed these things, we were going from them and they were hitting a button and we were filing with Carroll County. They were hitting enter and they were sending it to you, and you were essentially filtering this stuff, or at least you were seeing it before it became public. The court, nope, Mr. Rosie. And so that's the way in talking with her, that's the way I understood the mechanics, which I think is what happened to a pleading the other day. From what I understand, we filed something and you either put it in a queue. I think there's a way anyway. I tried to do some homework on that, and that's what Mr. Baldwin, I was a part of one of those conversations, and that's what she said, the judge. So does that need a hearing? I'm happy to have a hearing on that. I don't have a problem with that. Mr. Rosie, well, I don't really. I guess I'm just telling you context. That's what Mr. Baldwin, I mean, could there be a happy medium of we file it confidentially and then so the judge then gets a chance to review it first? Because that's what we thought was going on anyway. But if not, then that's not what's going on. The judge, no, it's been filed confidentiality if you mark it as such. Mr. Baldwin, I know that now. The judge, I have my staff mark the memorandum confidential. After that has been filed and disseminated to the public because the actual warrant was in there and that's covered under a miscellaneous cause number. I'm happy to have a hearing. Mr. Rosie, well, what is your ruling? I guess to make sure I understand. I don't want to fight about something that we don't need to argue about. The judge, I haven't ruled on that. Mr. Rosie, okay. The judge, you haven't filed a response on that. Mr. Rosie, yeah. The judge, my question is, do we need a hearing on that or do you wish to file a response? The Franks motion clearly needs a ruling and I'm working on that. The motion and exhibits are about 1,500 pages and there are hours and hours and hours of interviews that have been made available that my IT staff has now cleaned to make sure they're okay. We already talked about that, and then, that brings us to my concerns that I had raised with all of you on our phone call. And I write everything out, and this is what I intend to say in open court. I have concerns regarding the defense team and the totality of the circumstances surrounding your representation of Mr. Allen. Candidly, my concerns began at our hearing November 22nd of last year. Mr. McClelland filed a motion of gag order, and we were in chambers, and you assured me, gentlemen, we don't want the media in our lives. We will not try this case in the media, and less than 2 weeks later, you issued an undated press release that contained an awful lot of information that would not normally be revealed. I don't know. I think you knew or should have known that those were potentially violative of Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Responsibility. But is that press release that prompted me to issue the order on December 2nd, granting the gag order until further hearing? April 18th of this year, you filed a notice of tort claim against the Department of Corrections. You stated in that notice that it was your intent to pursue our client's claims against you. The full amount of damages sought on behalf of my client is unknown. I don't know how you could do that in representing Mr. Allen in a criminal matter and then launch off into a civil matter. I think that's inappropriate. May of this year, we were notified by the state of the Brandon Woodhouse arrest and the subsequent discovery of your work product, and I think it was an outline that you created for yourselves with the discovery. It was pretty detailed. I don't know if that's the right word. That apparently happened in December of last year, and that was not revealed to anybody, not shared with the court. It wasn't shared with you, although apparently you guys knew about what was going on. Mr. Baldwin, he didn't know. The judge, you knew. Mr. Baldwin, I don't know. The judge, so then Mr. Woodhouse gets arrested, and here we are, grossly negligent to email that to the wrong Brad. Your pleadings on the safekeeping order contained inaccuracies and falsehoods. That was proven in the hearing we conducted in June. The evidence presented by the state clearly demonstrated the falsity of your claims, and that was very troubling to me. And then the couple of weeks that we have been dealing with, the state provided you discovery that has been severely compromised. We now have an ongoing investigation. I'm not going to call it a criminal investigation. I don't know what it is, but it is clearly being investigated by the state of Indiana. Everyone involved has sought counsel, including you, Mr. Baldwin. You've had an attorney enter a written appearance this morning. I don't want to get into the investigation candidly. You are the constitutional authority for the state of Indiana. If you choose to pursue it, that is up to you. If you choose to abandon it, that is clearly up to you. I'm glad to hear that you have cooperated, Mr. Baldwin, but Mr. Baldwin's attorney has clearly shared, I don't know if you've seen his pleading, Mr. McClelland. I saw it, Judge. Yes, I got it kind of late. He emailed it to us and then the judge. Okay, Mr. McClelland, I saw that was filed on the way here. The judge, well, yeah, so he's clearly shared it in his pleading down to the fact that an individual has committed unaliving. He included the fact that you left materials all over a conference room table accessible to anyone. And this is a friend of yours who apparently you have consulted with on this case. So again, it's up to you if you wish to pursue that. I'm looking at the totality of the circumstances. You know, when I look at a suppression, the case law requires me to look at the totality of the circumstances, and that's what I'm doing. And it pains me to say this, but the totality of these circumstances demonstrate gross negligence and incompetence on the part of the defense team. I am unsatisfied with your representation of Mr. Allen. I am gravely concerned about his rights to have competent, non-negligent representation. He currently doesn't have that right now because what you demonstrated is negligence and incompetence. Now I am sharing my thoughts with you privately. I don't want to say this in open court. I would encourage you to talk privately about what you wish to do. I don't want this coming out. It is not where we need to be with this case, but I will. But you don't know that you have just now been made aware of my concerns and where I'm landing. So if you wish to have a private conversation, I would encourage you to do that. I don't believe your client is here yet. No, he's not. Clearly, you'll need to speak with him as well. So, Mr. Baldwin, I'm not good at reading between the lines. The judge, you're a lawyer. That's what you do for a living, Mr. Baldwin. When you say have a private conversation, are you talking the four of us or the judge? I'm talking about you. I'm not accusing the state of gross incompetence or negligence. I am finding gross incompetence and negligence with you, Mr. Baldwin. Okay, so Mr. Rosie. Forgive me, go ahead. Mr. Baldwin. No, Mr. Rosie. I mean, obviously reading the tea leaves here, what you're giving us a chance to do is bow out gracefully, if you will, if that's right, if that's the right term. Is there a scenario where the court would accept if I stayed on the case? I mean, I'm a team player and I'm not the kind of guy that just bail out on somebody just for the sake of doing it. But I think it's obvious that, you know, he can speak differently, but I'm not as connected to some of, you know, this most recent circumstances as he is. Mr. Allen is in a situation where he's gonna have counsel. That's, if he has new counsel, it's gonna take them a year to get up to speed with the depth of information that continues to come in. And so I think that his Sixth Amendment rights matter. You know, I'm probably the one that can at least move this thing forward with some sense of judicial economy. I don't like it, and that's not what I intended to do when I came in here today, but that would be kind of a worst case scenario on our side, you know, I guess. And so is that an option the court would entertain? The judge, no, Mr. Rosie. So basically you're saying you guys either quit on your own accord or you make me fire you? That's what the judge, no. I'm saying to you that this is what I plan to say in court on the record when we convene at 2:00, Mr. Rosie. Well, so is a culmination of that you're removing us from the case? The judge, I will, based on what I've just shared with you. Mr. Rosie, okay, well, I just want to make sure we're the judge, and I'm just giving you the opportunity to have a conversation, which, how do you want that to go? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I will if I have to. Mr. Baldwin, should we bow out gracefully, as Brad says? How would we even have a hearing? How would that go? Because if we're out of the case, then, Mr. Rosie, then you're going to go ahead and rule on a bunch of stuff without lawyers in the room? That's the judge. No, I would not do that. If you decide that's your best course of action is to file a motion to withdraw, you can do that today, and I'll send Mr. Allen back to the DOC after you've had a chance to speak with him. Mr. Baldwin, what would that happen before the hearing or after the hearing? That's the judge. Your motion to withdraw would happen before the hearing. Mr. Baldwin, okay, that's what I wanted. Yeah. The judge, yeah, because he has rights, and I don't want those rights compromised by having a hearing with him not having counsel. I assume if you choose to withdraw, that his financial situation hasn't changed and he would still be entitled to a court-appointed counsel. I can't imagine that he has the ability at this point to hire counsel. I don't know that. Mr. Baldwin, Brad and I need to go talk. The judge, yes, you do. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. McClellan, yep, thank you, judge. The judge, thank you, Jody. Court reporter, you're welcome. The judge, okay, yes. Mr. Rosie, all right, so obviously we're kind of trying to figure out how to address this issue with very short notice, very little notice. The first thing we did is really talk to the client. The judge, Mr. Rosie, our client is a big part of this, the biggest part of this. And he has communicated to us that he does not want us to withdraw from his case. He wants us to continue with his representation. He understands this, I think, that he's not the gatekeeper or he doesn't have the authority to really force the court to do that. He would like to say on the record, we asked him if that's what he wanted to do. He suggested maybe he would do it in chambers. It seems a little bit of a difficult position to put a man who's accused but not been found guilty, put him in a courtroom and have him, have him speak to the circumstance with 15 minutes notice. Andy and I'm going to speak for myself. I'll let him speak for himself. I'm going to file a motion to withdraw. I don't want to do it, but I think I don't have a choice at this point. The options I've been given without any notice by the court really are either I withdraw or I'm going to be publicly shamed, and that's the way I see this. And I think that public shaming is there's not only a professional element to that, but I think there's a personal aspect to that too. But when the media is teed up like this, and we show up here today with the court having told us that we're going to conduct some business, that somehow bleeds over into a forced resignation or whatever you want to, however you characterize this, that, I don't feel like I have any other choice professionally. I have a life beyond this courtroom and beyond this case, and I have a family too, and I have a law to practice. But I think, had we been given some notice of what we were actually, if this would have been framed in a pleading format or some formal disciplinary claim, which there's a process for that in our business, then we could have come in here today with an opportunity to refute some of these things that you clearly had, thought through and prepared before we got in here. And we didn't have the opportunity, and it's the idea that I'm going to have to go in here in an open courtroom and essentially defend myself against claims that I don't agree with without any notice and without any opportunity, I think is unfair. But I also have some common sense, and me going in there and standing my ground because my client wants me to do is just going to make things worse for him. So I'm going to withdraw my appearance. I'm going to walk out here. I'm going to go down to my car. I'm going to call my staff and have them prepare a motion, and I'm going to withdraw my appearance, but I'm doing it because I don't think I have any other choice professionally, not because I want to and not because my client wants me to. And I respect that the court has an opinion, but we're professionals and we can disagree. The court, of course, Mr. Rosie. And I am extremely, I'd say frustrated probably is a soft word with the idea that we showed up today without any real opportunity to prepare for any of this. And I just think it's improper. And that's where I am. And that's my position. The judge, well, I think we talked about that when you asked for disqualification and I indicated on our phone conversation, I'm inclined to do that, Mr. Rosie. It was a phone conversation that was not on the record. And then some follow-up emails. The judge, true, Mr. Rosie. There's an informality to that. The judge, true, Mr. Rosie. And you also said you hadn't even done any research and you hadn't, had time to talk to your senior judge and all of these other things. And he hasn't filed a pleading with the court either. The judge, no, I'm not doing this on my motion, Mr. Rosie, and I'm a lawyer who practices in lots of courtrooms, and I've been through some disqualification actions. In 20 years, I've never had a disciplinary complaint in my life, if you will, but I've seen lawyers disqualified, and there is a process for that, and it's not this. With all due respect, where you walk into somebody's office, a judge's office, and they read a prepared statement to you, and you essentially, that statement is an indictment of my professional, activities, and then you're handed essentially a sheet of paper with two options. One of them is, I'm going to go out here and shame you, or you can quit. You can understand how upset that would make any lawyer. And I just think I don't think it's the right way to handle this from a due process standpoint. So I have no choice but to, withdraw my appearance, because I'm not going to go in there and take a public shaming without having a notice of it. I just, that's where I am with it. Mr. Baldwin, I'm the same. Withdrawing, I mirrored what he said. I mean, I do appreciate giving us the advance notice. If there is some appreciation for that, I do appreciate that. But beyond that, I wanted to take this, and finish it out. I'm stunned. I don't know what to say. So I'll just say I'm moving to withdraw orally. The judge, okay, Mr. Rosie, is the court going to generate some further instructions on what to do with all this discovery that we have? And the judge, I already have, Mr. Rosie, all this information. And the judge, there's an order. I granted the state's protective order on discovery. Mr. Rosie, no, I'm talking about my possessions of all this information. Am I to take it out to the trash can? Am I supposed to wait for another attorney? Is the court going to give us some guidance on how to move all of this information from one law office? The judge, I did. Mr. Rosie, to another? The judge, when I granted the state's protective order, I think it's the last paragraph of that protective order directs you to return it to all the state, Indiana, all the copies, all of the whatever you gave them, they are required under that order to return to you, Mr. Rosie, at the conclusion of the case. The court, or your representation. Mr. Rosie, I know what order you're talking about. I read the order before I came today. The judge, okay, Mr. Rosie, so we're supposed to just take everything back and give it to the state and just return our work product until somebody asks us for it? The judge, your work product is your work product. I mean, I would hope that you would share that with successor counsel. I would hope that you would help successor counsel just with the transfer of all the information, because that's in your client's best interest to do that. But that's entirely up to you. That's your work product that you have developed. I mean, clearly the discovery is required to go back to the state. Mr. Rosie, okay, thank you. What do you want to do with Mr. Allen? The court, I can transport him back to the Department of Correction. Mr. Rosie, do you want to make a record with this? I think it's appropriate that the court let him speak into the record, his thoughts, unless the court just accepts that as notice that those are his opinions. The judge, well, you wouldn't lie to me about that. Mr. Rosie, I would not lie to you about anything. The judge, so of course that's your representation, that's what he would say if he were brought in here. I can't imagine the DOC being comfortable bringing him into my office. I would not be comfortable having him in my office. Mr. Rosie, would the court also be inclined to mark as an exhibit the prepared statement so that it's part of the record? The judge, I have record rolling. Rosie, okay. The judge, yes. Mr. Baldwin, so we're going to leave. I guess we're going to How is this? You're just gonna get up and on the bench and say, the judge, I will just indicate to Mr. McClelland going to be in there with Mr. Luttrell, and I'll say we've had a turn of events and the defense counsel is withdrawing, and that's all I'm going to say. Mr. Baldwin, can you wait for us to get out of here? The judge, of course. And we can have you, I don't know where you're parked at. We have a hearing on October 31st that I'd like to keep as trial setting and appointment of new counsel. And if you can get things together by that date to return to Mr. McClelland, that would be good. Otherwise, if with your permission, I would give successor counsel your contact information. Mr. Baldwin, okay. Mr. Rosie, okay. The judge, where are you parked? Mr. Rosie, nice to meet you. Sorry to inaudible. Mr. Luttrell, inaudible. Mr. Baldwin, just right there in front of the building. I mean, there's a parking lot. There's a little parking lot right in front of the building. I don't know what. The judge, everybody's in the courtroom, so I don't think that there's anybody out in the hallways. Mr. Rosie, I'm going to go get my staff member. I'm going to have her. I don't need any, rendezvous at this point and try to get the stuff back. Mr. McClelland, okay, that's fine. Between Steve and I and Sarah and you, Mr. Rosie, okay, Mr. McClelland, we will get it all. Mr. Rosie, that's fine. Mr. McClelland, done. That's either Sarah. Mr. Rosie, thank you. The court, thank you.
Journalism. It's time for you guys to start being journalists.
Thank you. You may be seated. We've had an unexpected turn of events. The defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. Mr. Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw. Mr. Rosie will be submitting a written motion to withdraw, I'm assuming within the next couple of days.
Baldwin and Rosie originally withdrew from the case after that in-chambers meeting. Remember that one back on October 19th? And then they later walked back their withdrawal and then offered to represent Richard Allen pro bono. Well, the judge denied that request, appointing new attorneys. And in her decision, she cited her finding of gross negligence, said she found gross negligence.
All right. So thank you for listening to that. Again, I know some of you guys have read it. Know you guys have heard it. Hi, Art of Deduction. It's good to see you. And everyone else, thank you for being here. What I want to do now is kind of just talk theories. We had a good one. The Rockaways mentioned, was this just a ploy to get Baldwin and Rosie off the case? Prosecutor maybe feeling like his case wasn't as strong as, the argument that they're rolling out. What exactly is the basis for Mitchell to kind of backstab Baldwin, a friend of his, and he worked for him? How would Mitchell be working with the prosecution and the judge basically for that theory? Like how we had talked about that earlier in chat. Like I'm trying to connect if this was kind of orchestrated to just remove Baldwin and Rosie, then how did Mitchell kind of get roped into all that? You know what I mean? Now, there's another theory that we're kind of playing around with. And, some people think that the defense leaked this because it was going to back up their claims about the Odinism stuff. Other people are trying to look at, we're looking into that, the magical connection. Who is connected to Mitchell besides We Seen Murder She interviewed him back in spring. And if we're saying that Murder She is the mouthpiece for the prosecution to get around the gag order, what would have motivated Mitchell to kind of backstab the defense, I guess, obviously he knew better than to do what he did. And we have evidence that this leak stuff has been going around. I'll share my screen. I mean, we've seen this. Hold on. It's from Court TV. This is December 2nd last year. Judge issues a gag order. And everyone's been wondering, where did Chris Todd, this guy here, get the information that he had gathered? And why at this point, with the gag order being issued, why was he on here speaking on it, but it wasn't a problem then? So that the main question, and even on the thumbnail, is like, why were some leaks okay and others, are not okay, and others are considered gross negligent? Some people have said, well, that's because the judge wasn't the judge at the time, or the gag order wasn't on there and all this stuff. But it's just, to look at the big picture, it still makes you kind of scratch your head. So then why did Mitchell do what he did at the time that he did, and all that? So let's just listen to Chris Todd again. Some people think that he's saying that he just has the river pictures. Other people are saying that it seems like he was shared the crime scene photos as well as the clothing in the river. You guys let me know what you think.
For us, what is where, and the significance of these locations.
There's a little bit of a delay too. So, and hello, Florida Bass Fishing. Good to see you.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me today. Honored to be here. I just got the crime scene photos. I just received these within probably 48 hours. So it's all brand new. I'm still processing what to make of it. It's a little sad, and it's going to be emotional for the families, for the public to see these. And I am going to bring them forward. And I guess we may not show them today, and that's okay. But these are the articles of clothing that were found in the creek.
When you talk about articles of clothing, does this suggest that there may have been some sort of sexual aspect to what happened to these young girls based upon the clothing that you saw in these photos?
I can comment a lot more even about the actual murders themselves. We can wait for that if you'd like, through the Leo whistleblowers that we have.
Through the Leo whistleblowers that we have, law enforcement officers that they have close to the investigation, given Chris Todd this information, and what's her name that we shown in the script, the transcript where she had, what is her name from the Down the Hill podcast or whatever?
I do know a lot about the murders themselves.
Let it fly.
Okay.
Let it fly,
Sure.
Chris.
So
Let it fly.
from the clothes, yeah.
Now, he claims he knows a lot about the murders themselves. And this is December 2022. And hello, Melissa Jade. It's good to see you. And yeah, I get that theory, sweet dude Shibby. Yes, Mitchell's leak backed up the Odin theory, but they didn't need any backing up. They were doing very well without it. But the thing is, like, I don't know. Is that what it is? That he thought that he would be helping? Because that is like a huge risk. To breach that. And in fact, I read an article speaking about the gag order back in December 2022, and it basically said right on there, like, anyone who breaks this gag order was risking jail time, a fine of something. And it's interesting. Like, is that what it is? Because I'm feeling like there's another theory that we're kind of playing around with. Gavin Fish needed to remove the images from his channel in December. Interesting. So now he's going to talk about the clothing.
It indicates. Okay. Yes, there was a sexual assault for both victims. And there's some creepy posing and staging that occurred. But just to answer the first question is yes.
So creepy posing and staging. This is all before this. Okay, Jason Jensen gave him the information, you think? Interesting. Definitely could be true. Jason Jensen, or what was I saying? Okay, so he just stated creepy posing. That information didn't come out until this year with the memorandum. We had heard in the Ron Logan search warrant that the bodies were moved and staged. But this guy literally is saying, now we know that there were sticks laid on them and all that now, but back in December, like nobody knew. I mean, people had talked about it, and I'm sure rumors were spread and all that, but he's stating it as a fact. Oh, something McDonald on Down the Hill podcast. Thank you. What is her first name? It's just slipped. It's on the tip of my tongue. But thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. it's just interesting, that so many law enforcement officials apparently were speaking to these people right before the gag order. And then these people have come out of the woodworks even after this memorandum and after the crime scene leaks came out. And they're stating, like, oh, well, sources close to the investigation told me this and that.
The clothes in the photos, there's 3 of them. I have 3 photos. And these clothes do indicate that they prove that one of the girls was nude for sure at that moment. And I do believe through the investigation that both girls were nude at one time.
That's another indicator to me that he'd seen the crime scene photos of the girls, not just the ones in the river, because he says something indicated to him that they were both nude at one time. So Libby, we know, was nude completely. And we know that Abby was found wearing partially some of Libby's clothing. So he's kind of deducing that that means at one point Abby was nude, because she's wearing different clothing. Just an example of what, we heard in the transcript, them kind of mention leaks and all that had been happening. Now, we heard that first responders and search people were taking photos of the girls, and that was back in 2017. So when the defense says, like, we knew that before we even joined this case, that there were leaks out there, and we have a whole deposition, and, law enforcement basically confirms, like, yes, these leaks were taking place. But now all of a sudden it's just this issue now. Let's see what Chris Todd had to say on Court TV a couple weeks ago. I believe this is after the leaks kind of came out.
What I'm saying is this Frank's motion is where the case is at today. This is the most important thing. The defense is creating this scenario of other people looking at other people, this ritualistic pagan ceremony. And this has been going on since day one with Tony Klein, Kegan Klein. These names, everyone said these names. But I'm saying is, so today, this case is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. This is bombshell information. And I understand what the defense is doing, but I'm just going to say this to you right now, okay? The runes, this writing in blood on the tree, I'm not buying any of it. And I have multiple sources that too. I have a lot of people on the inside on this investigation. I'm not buying any of it.
So again, another example of somebody on here basically confirming that, people close to the investigation are speaking with, him and Court TV apparently. So why all of a sudden is it an issue and, Baldwin and them have to get removed? The other layer into this, I don't know where this fits in, but this documentary for the CW. I just got to drink some water, guys. One sec. I don't know where this fits in, but a lot of times when people are confused about something or why something has taken place, you follow the money, right? I just heard on News Nation and where was it? I think JLR covered it. Basically saying that, hi, Sleuthy Goosey, that some documentary series wants to film for Brian Koberger's his case, and they spoke with his family and they offered his family $1 million or some big signing thing. And I start thinking about this documentary that apparently people in Delphi or people covering this case, Delphi, are part of, or there's rumors that they're in this documentary. And let me just read from this. I can't help but wonder if this documentary has something to do with this. I don't know. So this came out in September. James Goldstone to produce docuseries Crime Nation for the CW. The CW is officially moving into true crime. The broadcaster has ordered Crime Nation a 10-part series from former ABC president James Goldstone. It comes after Deadline revealed the Nexstar that the Nexstar-owned network was developing its own true crime strand in the vein of NBC's Dateline, CBS 48 Hours, and ABC's 2020. So it's going to be kind of like those shows before the CW. It goes on to say, the series, which will premiere in 2024, will follow mysteries, cold cases, and investigations. Each episode will be 2 hours long and will feature ripped from the headline stories and interviews. Cases will include the Delphi murders, the Lori Vallow Daybell case, the Gabby Petito murder, and the Gilgo Beach murders. So then it just talks about it's our first true crime series, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know if you guys follow the Gilgo Beach case, but it kind of came out last week that the wife of Lisk, Long Island serial killer, was in court in person, which, mind you, she didn't go to his other hearings. And in fact, as soon as the news broke about her husband's arrest, she filed for divorce. She started kind of distancing herself from obviously being associated with him, and that she was shocked and all that stuff. Oh, good night, Seth. Thanks for stopping in. Okay, so you saw that, Cray Cray? Yeah, so she's being followed around with a whole camera crew now. And all of a sudden, she changes her stance about her husband, Rex Heuermann, who is accused of being the Long Island serial killer. And she's saying, I want to wait until I can see the evidence laid out before I decide either way. And I don't know. Now, the one with her is through Peacock. So I don't know if it's the same James Goldstone CW people, but that's what I'm wondering. And I want you guys to kind of help me find out, is this the same series? The CW apparently works with Peacock. So their network that Peacock will kind of put on there too. So yeah, it is so bizarre. I don't know. I don't know if, so then I started thinking, and we're talking theories, obviously, and there's no proof or anything like that, but you guys let me know what you're thinking. Was this leak that just took place that removed Baldwin and Rosie, was it kind of orchestrated to kind of add drama to this docuseries? Because apparently they were in Delphi filming around that time. And like I said, Asa Ellera, which I think is how you pronounce Rex Heuermann's wife's name, all of a sudden her script changed as soon as cameras started following her around and she got signed for some deal through Peacock. They might have said something to her like, well, if the story is interesting enough and we make enough ad revenue or whatever, you could earn even more money. So did that motivate her to kind of change her mind about Rex Heuermann, her husband, and kind of not support him? But yeah, she did. She showed up in court and I guess she's visited him. Suddenly has a change of heart. Is that just for the camera? That's what people are wondering. Now for Delphi, was this kind of leak orchestrated through Mitch with this docuseries? I don't know, guys. Obviously, this is a whole conspiracy, but what kind of persuades people to turn against their friends and to risk their reputation and stuff? I can't help but wonder, was money motivating Mitchell, or is there something in it for people involved in this docuseries to make it more interesting? Did we get Richard Allen's case removed? And I don't know, but you guys let me know what you think, because I think it's all weird. Yeah, that scenario would be even worse. I don't know. I can't help but feel like, oh, BK's birthday today. I wonder if he got a cake. I wonder. I don't think his parents are visiting him. That's for sure. And yeah, thank you guys all for being here. I don't know, guys. Yeah, the root of all evil is money. That's what I was kind of thinking. Like, what's going on here? Hello, Wolfie. Murder Sheet need to keep this to keep going as they have built their podcast and made their money on Delphi case. After it's finished, what will they have? No podcast, no subs, no TV interviews. Even like the ones that are like named Down the Hill podcast and stuff. Like your entire professional like podcasting is based on this case. You know, what are you going to do? I don't know. Not my problem. All right, so the last thing before we go, I kind of wanted to play a little bit of this new court TV thing just to kind of hear the experts discussing the transcripts and everything that's kind of taken place. Give me a second to share my screen. And this kind of talks about what Willie kind of asked earlier in chat about, wasn't there an inmate who wrote a letter basically saying that he's witnessed Richard Allen being treated poorly? That kind of gets touched on here as well. So I wanted this to kind of be included with the live stream also.
Being housed in the Westville Correctional Facility. And I do want to say, normally a defendant is housed in a county jail while awaiting trial, but Allen has been in a prison cell. Now, his former defense attorney had been fighting to get him moved because they say he's being mistreated there. They claimed his physical and mental health has been suffering, and a fellow inmate who had agreed to testify in the case is speaking out about Allen's treatment behind bars. In a handwritten letter to the court, Robert Baston wrote, "I was housed in a cell A2206, just above Richard M. Allen's cell at A1107, due to being a voice on how Richard Allen was being mistreated by corrupt sergeants. Security cameras will show Sergeant Brandon Williams slamming to the floor and violently breaking my foot and ankle, and then intimidating the nurse not to treat my injuries. Sergeant Brandon Williams and officers hold me while Officer Quentin Davis violently punched me in the ribs and stomach, while Officer Mr. Motts kneed me in the face. I was placed on stripped cell and my personal property was taken. When I eventually received my property back, my legal documents were either destroyed, lost, or taken due to incriminating recorded dates and times. Some of those recorded dates and times concern how Richard M. Allen was being abused and mistreated by staff and officers. Again, I have witnessed Richard M. Allen being abused and mistreated. I, Robert Batson, ask this court to report this corruption to the proper authorities to investigate." All right, let me go to you, Bob Mata, because I know you have experience dealing with folks in jail. And this guy seemed to be especially prolific. He had other letters claiming that there was contraband coming in against one of the officers, actually a few of the officers, and a number of systemic issues he brought up. What do you make of his claims that there was abuse of Richard Allen and that he's being abused because he spoke out?
If I'm his attorney, I'm talking about Richard Allen's attorney, I'm exceptionally concerned. You know, it's easy to decide to find somebody to not be credible because they're a convicted felon. And I know that Batson has, as you stated, has written several letters, has complained often about the situation in Westville in particular. But if I'm Allen's attorney, I'm mortified on behalf of my client. You know, I mean, and that bears itself out in the fact that they've tried to get him out of there not once, but twice. And I've been, frankly, in the exact same situation in the case in Omaha, Nebraska, where, 23 hours a day, Michael, going on 6 months in segregation with no human contact is brutal in and of itself. When you start adding in other things that are going on, which they just happen in prison, and people may not want to believe it, but and that's the problem with having a pretrial detainee, somebody who has not been convicted of anything and who is presumed to be innocent in this country, and that's the law of the land. It's not an opinion. They don't make that distinction in prison. The guards don't, and the inmates don't. He is being viewed as a child killer, and he's being treated as such by both of those parties, and I have zero doubt about it.
Yeah. Susan Hendricks, I want to bring you in quickly before we have to go to break. I think Bob hit it right on the head. The sense I'm getting from that community is that they're treating him, and I want to say the legal community out there, as if he's already convicted of this crime. Do you sense that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob was right. I have the same opinion. I don't think he should be there. I've heard it from the other side saying, well, he has more privileges there. There's mental health experts, but come on, he doesn't deserve to be there. Look at where we are. And a jury hasn't even been picked And this is how much discussion is going on around this. What we want, what the families want, what Bob has spoke of, all of your guests has, is a fair trial, the right to a fair trial. Richard Allen deserves that. The families deserve that. Now we have to decide, or it has to be decided. How do we get there?
Yeah, and a fair trial in a timely manner. That's one of the issues that's been raised by the attorneys that were let go in this case, that by doing what the judge did, they pushed this thing out another year. So he's got to be in this situation for another year. So that's not something to sneeze at. All right, we do have to take a break, folks. We have much more ahead. We want to remember the real victims in this case. As always, Abby and Libby. Up next, we're going to hear from their families and how their senseless murders have affected the small town of Delphi.
We continue to help. Obviously, keeping their story out there, keeping their names out there.
Mike and Becky Patty were surprised by the call that came. Police had arrested the man accused of killing their granddaughter, Libby German, and her friend, Abby Williams.
It was very bittersweet, you know. They said it was kind of a strange feeling that when they told us, you know, hey, we've got somebody detained and we're going to make an arrest him. It was like, okay, I guess all that work has started to pay off.
For nearly 6 years, Libby and Abby's families kept the girls' stories front and center around the globe.
Maybe it took all of that. Maybe it took looking further away to find him here. I don't know. I only know that I feel like we did what we had to do to keep the pressure out there to find him. That was our part. That was what we were supposed to do.
The arrest has brought them some peace, but their hearts still hurt. The loss unforgettable.
I believe that she helped lead them. I believe that she was steering all along. And I believe she's up there quite excited.
Now, you don't need me to tell you that Delphi double murders case is filled with twists and turns that no one could ever see coming. But the one thing that has never changed is that the lives of 2 young girls were taken away far too soon and in a brutal way. Abby German and Libby Williams were both friends just out for a fun day of hiking along the Monon High Bridge in Delphi. Now, Abby's sister, Kelsey, is the one who dropped the pair off on February 13th, and they were never seen alive by their families again. This is Kelsey and our guest, Susan Hendricks, taking the same drive that she did that day to drop the girls off. Days after their bodies were found, Indiana State Police released a photo of the suspect from Libby's phone that showed a man on the trail around the same time. They also released a short clip of the suspect directing the girls off the bridge.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
All right, still with me, Susan Hendricks, Bob Mata, Lauren Vellucci, all with Susan. Let me start with you because you obviously had an opportunity to visit with family members. I got to get a sense of how they're doing now. All that's going on, all that's been revealed cannot have been easy for them.
Yeah, and I think that they really found support through talking to the media. I got to know them, of course, through first interviewing them, and I know that Kelsey now has a little girl, Ellie, and I love to see pictures of them. But speaking with Becky at CrimeCon, and of course, nothing about the case was discussed. It's difficult for them. I know that they had a purpose, and they really like to be out there and to say, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're doing, and things are still hurtful to them, but they can't say it. And I know that Libby's grandmother was showing her frustration when she knew that the crime scene photos were leaked and posted on Facebook what she could, because she's respecting, of course, the gag order, doesn't want to do anything, of course, to mess up the trial and what moves forward, but saying, look, these are the pictures, and I'm quoting here, it says, for those that want to see pictures, for those of you who want to see them, these are the ones that you should be looking at. I'm paraphrasing here, not the ones that should not be seen until trial. So they're hurt by what people say out there. They're listening, they're looking, they have feelings, they want this to go by fast. They want to get the right guy. If Richard Allen's innocent, of course, why would they want him in prison and the guilty guy or guys still out there? So they want what everyone wants. They just want this in a manner that's done in a more, in a way that this isn't going on, the chaos, if you will, before a trial has even started.
Yeah, and I would imagine keeping things respectful. I mean, it's so hard in today's day and time with all the social media to keep control of the message. And I see Grandma trying to sort of take back that control. I want to take a listen to the community because we also have a community at large of about 3,000 out there in Delphi. This was shortly after Richard Allen was arrested. Here's some people. We spoke to some folks out there. Here's what they had to say about how they felt about that.
They call it Dead Creek, so now I can come here and enjoy the outdoors. We like to hike all the parks around us.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for the community here and everywhere.
Lauren, it's a small community, you know, many of these across America. And there's this claim of this conspiracy, this Odinist cult. Is it possible for it to exist in a community like that? We're seeing that apparently, according to the defense and stories they're telling, it reaches into the correctional system and officers and law enforcement are being framed. I mean, not that you read between the lines. I got to get your thoughts on that.
So when it first came out, I thought it was way out there, right? And then the more information that I received, the more looking into this whole case I do, yeah, social media accounts for these people who are named in that documentation, it's crystal clear that they're Odinites. They do the Odinite things with the sacrifices and all of that kind of stuff. So it is possible. It was a new thing to me, Odinism, but it does exist there, and it does exist in those people who we shall not name on the air. But yeah, it does, and it's creepy. And I just want to say something about the victims too. I just want to say what a hero that Libby was. We know as grown-ups, as adults, if we see something, to say something. But the fortitude and the brains that this young lady had to film when she felt something wasn't right, it blows my mind, and she is a hero to me. And I just think every parent everywhere needs to teach their child at a young age that if something doesn't feel right, everyone has cameras these days, and to do what she did, because she solved this case, or will eventually solve this case. And so I just props to her, and she's amazing.
Could not agree more. I mentioned very early on, she had the presence of mind to do that under some very trying circumstances. So I agree 100%. Bob, going back to what Lauren mentioned about what might be going on out there, what's very possible. According to law enforcement, they looked into this and they apparently didn't find anything. Doesn't sound to me like they're the right folks to be looking into it. Does something else need to happen here?
I mean, look, I try to explain to people when I'm in my podcast or on my YouTube channel, everything that the defense stated in their memorandum came directly from the state's discovery, which came directly from law enforcement. These aren't theories the defense is cooking up in their office. This is all stuff that came directly from the evidence that was given to them by Nick McClelland. So, and what we know is that there were 3 cops who continued to investigate that angle long after the Unified Command decided, for whatever reason, that they were no longer interested in investigating that angle at all. And, I mean, the whole thing with the professor and them saying that they didn't know who he was during a deposition, everything that took place just makes it stink. And it's so apropos to have this particular question during this segment when I have to look at just the victims' families who have put all their hope into what law enforcement has told them in terms of it being the correct person. And then when we hear what the defense has put out, and again, which has come from the discovery tendered to them by the state, it breaks my heart because for whatever reason, they quit. In my estimation, whether Richard Allen, they found more evidence on him and they can prove that he's the guy, that's amazing. And I'm thrilled for the families because they're getting the justice they deserve. However, based on what I've seen, and it came through in that defense memo, thankfully, I think that they need to be continuing to investigate, Michael. That's how I feel about it. I think that to stop the investigation is absurd based on what we all now know.
I would have to agree. And again, putting everything under seal, not leaving it out to the public, considering all the interest, I think, everything under the sunshine, you got to have it out there because there's so many questions in this case.
So again, that kind of concludes all the updates and everything that we had to talk about with this case right now. Hello, CDT. It's good to see you. Please explain Detective Holman. Are you referring to how in the transcripts they said that they had a deposition where he basically comes out and says that these leaks have been taking place since the very beginning? Because that was kind of talked about by, I think Rosie mentioned it in the transcripts, who basically said, we have a deposition of Holman. And is that what you're referring to? But either way, we're going to wait for the Supreme Court to decide if they want to remove Judge Gohl. Richard Allen's attorneys pretty much are saying she's got to go. We want to stay on, even if it's pro bono. We'll be waiting to hear from Supreme Court. I don't know when that deadline was. Believe that deadline was, I don't know, the 27th, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that one was it or if that was just when the transcripts had to be given to us by. There's a lot of things going on with this case. So again, she was in the hospital earlier this month. She's out of the hospital. She's working from home. And I guess she has no intention of recusing herself. So if the Supreme Court is going to remove her, then that's what's going to happen. But again, I said a lot of legal experts are not thinking that the Supreme Court will do that. But at the same time, a lot of hopeful people are saying she's biased or she's siding with the prosecution already before this trial. You know, she's not supposed to be siding with either side. You know, she's supposed to be unbiased. I'm very bothered by the fact that the defense hasn't seen the leaked photos. Yeah, that was another thing. Was it Baldwin who said, or one of them said, I think it was Baldwin, where he said, and I haven't seen these. Because this is just what I heard. And Sleuthy, you let me know in chat, let me know what you heard. I heard that none of these photos look like they're photos of somebody taking picture of photos laying out on the table. And that is what Mitchell's affidavit, which again was not dated, that's what it basically says. Like, yes, I took these photos and they were laying out on our conference table. And that's what it said in the transcripts too. But I'm hearing from people who have seen these photos say, like, no, these don't look like they're what somebody took laying out on a table. I don't know. The Odinist angle is exculpatory evidence. So I see no issues with the angle. The judge acts like she is mad because they're defending Richard Allen. She's just on something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Yes, and why not talk to experts, then lied, and then stopped investigating Elvis after his admission and alibi proven false? Again, that goes into this whole confessions. Richard Allen confessed. Well, we also have Elvis, who apparently confessed too to this crime. So very strange. Very strange. I think she will be removing herself. Really? That would surprise me because she seemed very adamant or confident in this. Again, I guess that was a couple weeks ago, and maybe she didn't expect everybody to kind of be under fire about what she's doing or up in arms about it. But she seemed very confident, basically saying like, yep, they're recusing themselves and Rosie is handing in a written motion to step down to blah, blah, blah. Plus Holman's lying and sworn affidavit just faded away. No accountability from Gull. Why? I don't know. And then I want to check the date. So that one Court TV episode where it was December 2nd, talking about the leak, or no, I'm sorry, talking about the gag order. That was on a Friday. Okay, so I guess that's when the gag order was put on. The same day the gag order is making filing in the court, Chris Todd is on Court TV discussing that he believes that this was had a sexual element to it and that they were both nude at one point. You know, how would you know that if you hadn't seen Abby wearing Libby's clothes, which kind of concludes this whole, okay, I guess he undressed her or whatever. It's just very strange. I'm sure Nick just made a mistake, but he can, but Baldwin can't. Right. That's what like this whole question for me is like, why is this leak okay and this leak isn't? That's why I'm like wondering this second leak, Elvis had receipts too, explicit, recent, very early on. Sometimes when you look at things in an investigation, something that happened very early on is like, that was the truth, but you didn't think to go down that avenue or you kind of just brushed over it. I mean, that's what they're kind of claiming happened with Richard Allen anyways. Oh, we missed it, but then we went back and found it. Well, what? It's like the same situation with Elvis. Gull is bringing the heat down on the entire state of Indiana. There will be pressure for her to bow out gracefully. True. Is she elected? Like, is that like, when is that's the other thing I kind of wanted to lay out too. Like, in addition to this whole documentary thing that was going on, is there some election or something like that? That can always play into people's motives and judges' motives and prosecutions and all that. So that's something I kind of wanted to look at too. But again, I'm still kind of toying around with the idea, like, was this whole leak and drama kind of orchestrated, like, especially with certain creators getting this leak in their emails, and then some of these creators were interviewed for this documentary. It's just very weird. It's very weird. Like, was it just added for drama?
And then it's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess we'll just remove the lawyers, but at least we have a good story and now we can add that in there. I don't know. No, she was not elected. Okay, Rebecca, thank you. What is the truth here? No damn clue. Exactly. That's the problem. But they really didn't find anything. No record of interview with Richard Allen being on the trail at the time, they say. And what are we going off of? Just some little note about Richard Allen's claims, like on a piece of paper? That's the other thing I want to know. Like he obviously wasn't interviewed in a police setting, like with a camera or anything like that. So I really do want to kind of like go back and examine him coming forward and all that. And again, I'm not saying he's innocent, but at the same time, I really have a hard time believing that he did all this himself. That's just my opinion. But all right, guys, I am ready to just call it a night. Again, Thanksgiving this week, so we won't be live Friday. CDT, if you're still here, I'm wondering if next Friday, so not this Friday, but the following one, if you can do a Watts Live with me, because everyone just loved you being on and us going through it together again, like the old days. And yeah, we're definitely going to be, he placed himself there, right? But I mean, like, was that, like, what is the record of that tip? Like, is it like a written note? Like, how do we know that that note was from that day? Or, you know, I don't know. I just want more information about everything and about his confession to his wife and mother while he's been in jail, aka prison. It's just all very crazy. I have a Christmas parade that Friday, but should be home by 9-ish. Okay, well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Hey, McClellan agrees with that. He's still searching for the other actors involved in the crime. So that's the other thing too, is he mentioned something about other people possibly being involved, and so did Doug Carter. But then the gag order was issued, and we haven't heard anybody kind of state that that's what they're thinking or still exploring. Maybe they are, or are they just saying like, okay, let's just get this conviction and call it a day? I don't know. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you to my moderators, Roxanne, and everyone else who's here. If there were more involved, that is terrifying, and they all need to be held accountable and brought to light. And that's the problem, too. It's like one of them is dead, Ron Logan, who maybe has some involvement. Keegan Kline, he's facing other charges, and none of them are linked to this case. But at the same time, they've said over and over that they can't discuss Keegan Kline because it's all connected to this case. And, you know, was he given immunity? I don't know. There's a lot of questions and a lot of rabbit holes, but Liggett said in his depo, it's only Allen. I don't trust Liggett. I don't know. I've never trusted him. I never liked him. I don't know how you guys feel. Again, I don't say that I trust one of these other people more than Liggett, but there's just something about him that I'm not. And that's the thing too, is I wanted to know, is Mark, who was tied to a lot of these leaks, does he know Liggett? That was another thing I kind of wanted to iron out. But okay, guys, have a good Thanksgiving. We'll talk very soon. And thank you to everyone who donated. The PCA was sealed because McClellan said that they were still searching for other actors involved. Interesting. All right, guys. He even looks shifty. All right, we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.